Hello and welcome to the Late League Chat Show. Apologies, I am late for the live viewers, but it is always good to be here after another banger week of LCS. The break is done. I'm very glad the show is back. I had a long day, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. I was here all day, at the very top of the show, all the way to the very end, at the last game. So we have a couple topics on our screen. If you're new here, first of all, thank you for hanging out, whether you are listening to my voice in some sort of recorded fashion or listening live right now on the interwebs. This is your cozy content home for all things LCS. We reflect and react on this stream about the happenings of the weekend in a very chill way. As you can probably tell from the purple clouds currently behind me, for an audio-only listener, apologies. But there's cool stuff going on. You can see it on the VODs if you want to check. We're just going to break down some topics of the week. This is like not that... I was going to say it's like not that big of a week. But I think it's more like there's a small amount of topics, but they're pretty big, is the way I'd look at this week. So we're going to start off with, I guess, the fun one, EG, and specifically Danny. But EG still on top, looking unbelievably good. It is, we keep joking about this, but I feel like there is a small feline that was not here. Actually, she might have been here the last time I did the show. But she's somewhat new to the household, and she is very excited that we're all on stream here, hanging out. I think she wants to be a broadcaster or just really piss me off. Anyway, Evil Geniuses. It's funny that we had... First of all, it's funny that they're 8-1 after first round robin, after going 9-9, and then winning the split last spring. But we like gave them so many excuses, and not because like we're trying to be nice to them, but because I think it is realistic to talk about teams not being as good when coming off of international, especially MSI, which has a very short turnaround compared to Worlds, right? Which is obviously a longer tournament, but you get a whole, that's really the only off season you get as a League of Legends pro if you play in the international events, which obviously everyone from every professional league is trying to do. So we had the MSI hangover Johns. We had the now it's vacation time. Like they worked extra hard through the back end of MSI, took their break week, very publicly. Players talked about they're going on vacation. I think the org was really good and transparent about saying like, hey, we're going to have our teams this is the thing we've been working toward because our team deserved a break. And somehow they're still winning. EG just looked good. It's so scary how the gap between EG and the rest of the team is not the gap I expected. In fact, I didn't expect much of a gap at all. I thought we were going to have 4 incredibly good teams and then a couple teams kind of tight around the top 4, and then we'll see what happens with the rest of the 4, and it'll be kind of an interesting playoff texture with 8 teams coming through for some of it. EG just are gapping everyone, it looks like. Obviously today, beating Team Liquid in the fashion they did looks very good for them. And Danny in particular just had an absolute game of it, which was a treat. I think Danny's Ezreal actually is exceptional, and one of the reasons that stands out to me is that I think generally Ezreal's actually been pretty dog in the LCS. I don't think there's a lot of good Ezreal players. Thanks for that, Cat. Sorry if there's any blips in the audio for the audio-only listeners. Ow. Thank you for clawing me. That's very appropriate. I didn't really expect EG to look as good as they did, but here we are, and Danny is just going off alongside the rest of the team, right? I think it's you look at their record overall after this kind of first half of the split for them, and it's not a one-man team by any stretch. Every single player on this team has done work, and it's going to be tough to pick an MVP frontrunner from this team because of how well each piece is playing and how well they're playing together. But Danny, especially after today, I believe you won Player of the Week. I'd be shocked if you didn't, given that I know a lot of people were voting for him, especially after today's game. But Danny just went off on Ezreal. And yeah, I was saying that I don't think Ezreal's very good in NA, generally. I think we've had some good imported AD carries that have obviously been legacy Ezreal players, but I think generally the champion has not been that good in North America. But Danny's looking really good on the champion, and I think he seems like the kind of player that will consistently try and play picks, or at least maybe this split he's just doing it, where he's trying to learn the ins and outs of a champion and like expand his pool, but he does it by consistently playing, many, many games on stage and putting himself in those positions rather than just like having a really wide pool. In general, ADs don't need a very wide pool, right? You need to be very consistent and very effective. And yeah, he's just the thing that's great about Danny, and that's always been great about Danny, is regardless of the champion, he's, to your point in chat, like he's really good at maximizing his damage. And Ezreal is the kind of champion where if you play well and you abuse Ezreal's mobility, you will completely gap people in team fights. And that's kind of what happened today in the TL game. It was kind of close, and it's always a little scary to play to scale against Team Liquid because they are very good individually and very good in late game situations, both in team fighting and in macro. And then they just won every team fight. And obviously Danny played a huge part in how that worked. Obviously it was a team effort as well, but obviously Ezreal DPM is always going to be very high, but Danny's DPM overall is really exceptional as an AD. And he's having just such a good split. And the whole team is, and I think that the cool thing for me looking at this EG, especially given what this roster was coming into this year, I think they've done such a good job of building upon the good things they have had. Like, I don't think they expected to win, even though they certainly expected to be competitive. But I think winning Spring was a nice cap to their strong season and the roster they built. But I don't think the team was like, oh, we're definitely the favorites for Spring. I think they definitely were always contending. But, a 9-9 regular season record's not a dominant team that's going to take over and smash us, right? But now they feel like that team, and they've only gotten better, and they were already pretty good. And every step of the way from Spring to MSI to now, this team has just become so much better. Like, Danny's staying consistent. I haven't looked closely enough at his laning stats to say if he's fixed kind of the most obvious criticism that people had of him. But he has certainly continued to be consistent and excel in the areas where he is already good. His team is setting him up very well, and I assume he's only going to improve. I think the same with Jojo. I have way more eyes on Jojo now after a split and an international. He's looking really good. Impact has consistently stayed good. Inspired's looking absolutely cracked out of his mind. Vulcan, I think, is finally getting the credit that I've wanted to see him get, because I'm a big supporter of Vulcan and like believer in his ability and his status as a top 2, top 3 NA support for a while. And I think Core has kind of owned that accolade for a number of years, and for good reason. He dominated in North America, but Vulcan has been one of the best teams, one of the best supports, in the LCS for a long time, going all the way back to even his clutch days, honestly, right before he joined Cloud9. Vulcan is a huge asset, and it's just real nice to see the team doing well. So EG are cracked out of their minds. I don't know who's going to beat them at this point, because they've beaten almost everyone. They took a loss to... Oh man, who did they lose to? CLG? I think they lost to CLG. CLG are pretty good, and that game is close. So I know Jojo today said he was pissed that they weren't undefeated, but I don't think they're far from it. And given how scrappy their games have been, and how much work they've clearly had to do to maintain a level when they are very clearly tired and trying to like pace themselves throughout a long split, looking towards playoffs, looking towards Worlds. Obviously, this is a team that is not only looking to win again, and they certainly have the ability to do so, but definitely wanting to make Worlds. If they miss, it's a huge L for Evil Geniuses in their year. And that's a long, long road to get to that point, right? You have to get very deep in playoffs. And we are now just halfway through the summer split. So the way EG have been like very tenacious in their games and still look like they're the best team, like pretty comfortably has been really impressive. So big ups to EG for being good. So TSM. I am really happy. I'm really happy today for TSM, actually. It's funny that we spent like all this time talking about them in waiting room. I think there has been a lot of different criticism for TSM for numerous reasons. And I think a lot of it is very fair. But the players on TSM have been pretty like beloved, I would say. And I think most people don't discredit the players for the situation they've been put in, because it does feel like in a lot of cases things are out of their control. But Speaker has been playing well most of the year, I'll say, but significantly better in summer, and he's been a great tool alongside Maple. But the rest of the team are like, I mean, it's funny. This is like a brand new team, right? But the rest of this team has looked like good, and they only had 2 games on stage together. They have not had a lot of time to practice, and it's like was nice for all of the like, we're sad, we wish TSM were better chatter, which is happening, and we kind of had that in some ways. Come here, cat aggro. One sec. Good old cat. I think like it's just nice to like, it's nice for a feel good TSM story, basically. And today was a really feel good TSM story. And maybe this is it. I don't know. Like, for me, the way I think about TSM is like, this is Speaker and Maple on form and 3 unknowns. That team can do a lot. Is the expectation that they do a lot? Absolutely not. That is not the expectation for this team at all. But like, that's the way I think about it. It's like, it's 2 very good players playing well and 3 question marks. Like, if the 3 question marks are gods, right, this team's going to go off. Now, the expectation, I don't think, is that, but I don't think you have to be that good. Like, you don't have to clear the highest of bars for this team to be at least somewhat successful. And success for this team, this split especially, doesn't have to look like a lot. Now, yeah, obviously, like all the TSM fans, and there's a lot of them, want to be popping off and winning titles again and doing all that stuff. But I think if a lot of your goal is to just rebuy trust within the community and reset your org and push it into its new era, because that's where we are. We are in a new era for TSM. And it's been a very impressive run. But if you're trying to build up these players to hold on to your big pieces, to, if you're trying to put the TSM back in TSM, for lack of a better phrase, this is a good start. And your players are going to surprise everyone, I think, no matter what, is what it feels like. Because, again, given where you started this year, the bar is pretty low. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to be in a spot where it's like, okay, we are just trying to like take it step by step and build things up. And maybe that's what they meant today when we read their statements on waiting room. And that's reasonable. Obviously, that's not necessarily how we interpreted them during the segment, but I think giving little wins to your fan base when so much has been tricky, and a lot of that is, of course, outside the player's control. This was a great day for TSM fans, and it was a really solid win. Soul actually is another player. I know Cubby kind of mentioned this. Soul is the kind of player that's like really exciting. Like I feel like Instinct was like he's decent, but I didn't hear a lot of chatter about him as the next AD. When I think about the academy players I've heard about, like Instinct is not a player that's like top of this is the next guy from this position that'll make LCS. Right? I think Eon and Ayla from Team Liquid Academy very understandably have kind of that as far they're marked for that as far as like these players are definitely good enough for LCS, but alas there's only so many spots. But Instinct played fine. Chime I think had definitely a renaissance game, and he is a player that has had a lot of promise, and he's definitely been through the grinder as far as the system goes and his work ethic goes. But he was on a team known for finding good potential in their players, right? And now being traded off to TSM, which for him probably is a mixed bag of like it's a very quick change, but also gets to play in LCS. Especially after today, Chime fans should be happy. And it was nice to see a lot of the Golden Guardians tweeting about Chime's game today. They were very happy for their former teammate. But Soul feels like he's got the necessary pieces, right? He's young. He's an incredibly good onstage interview. I have no idea how he got that good, but my goodness, that is a charismatic, well-spoken, confident person, which is tough as a young pro player, man. You're trying to focus on playing the game and stuff. You don't get to do that a lot. So credit to TSM, I'm assuming, or maybe just himself, or maybe both, for having pretty exceptional media training. Like the Academy guys said he'd be a good interview. I didn't think he'd be that good. So that was a nice surprise. But he's got the hands, for sure. My goodness, he is good mechanically. And I don't think he's necessarily shown that in the 2 games he's played on stage yet, but the people that know him know just how good those hands are. And he seems to have probably the hardest thing for a lot of rookies to get, which is the right mentality for improving. He's obviously been put in a tough spot, and I think with more time, he would have been quite a bit, he would look a lot better, right? That's kind of obvious, right? If he had a little bit more time to germinate, he would look like a better player out the gate, but that is not the position he's been put in. But to his credit, the position he is in, he has done very well at navigating, and like we've kind of said, it's an only go up from here situation for TSM in some ways. But I think Soul is a really exciting player because it seems like he has all the things you need instead of he has all the things already that are exciting for burgeoning superstars. So really excited for TSM. Just happy for TSM, honestly. I said it today, but they are one of the pillars, one of 2 for NA League of Legends. I am not here without TSM existence, I can tell you that much. So it's just nice for an org that's been through the ringer and then some to get a little win today. And like I said, a lot of potential, which is always nice. Which brings us to IMT versus Cloud9. It was really a day of upsets, kind of a weekend of one, but definitely today was unbelievable. I put these 2 together because I wanted to talk about IMT because I think celebrating their win today is important. But I have talked a lot about Cloud9 on this show, and I think it's important to revisit some of those things now that we're halfway through their split. But for IMT, super happy. They used their time off very well, and they also did not get a lot of time off because they were definitely playing and reviewing during the break week. They did not. I can't imagine they look so much more coordinated and so much more revitalized after that. Just really, really good stuff for IMT. And I think the number one criticism was I feel like you're not doing your... I feel like you're not playing together as a team, even though you have good pieces. And they look much more coordinated already. And Tristan, Power Evil, actually had pretty candid things to say on the analyst desk during his interview, which was nice. He just basically said all the things that we assumed, but it's nice when you feel like your assumptions are validated, and also nice for him to just be honest, right? Where PoE is just basically yep, We have a lot of veterans, but we don't always get on the same page, and we're very uncoordinated. Right? Those are the problems that we see as, enjoyers of the league, as people that think about it professionally as broadcasters. And it's obvious, I think, in a lot of ways, but that certainly seems to be the case. And it's nice for Tristan to just be honest on the desk. And you could see from the end of it how much it meant to the team. I know in general, like when you're in any sort of slide, you don't need a lot to turn the momentum around. So this win is going to be very, very important for IMT if they're trying to turn the season around. So good stuff. Also, I think Lost personally has been playing better. I know this is a player I talk about a lot because this is probably the player that I'm cheering for the most in the LCS. He's a long-time Oceanic player, obviously, and I want him to be successful, and I know his ceiling is there, but he has not lived up to his potential like some of his other Oceanic counterparts. Obviously, Fudge and FBI. If they're the bar, you have to win as a strong Oceanic player, which is quite a lot to ask for any player. But Lost has been around a bunch of different teams now, and I think he's always been good but never great, and I think he can be great. And obviously, I'm biased. He's from my region. I'm cheering for him to be successful, and I think he's just been a bit more aggressive, a bit more assertive, a bit more confident in recent games, even in recent losses that IMT have had. So for me personally, that's been really nice to see. And then on the other side, Cloud9. Cloud9 are funny, man. Maybe this is just the classic Cloud9, where they look amazing some games and not bad. I don't know. Sometimes Cloud9 goes off and absolutely takes over, and then sometimes you get games like this where Corky just kind of grinds you into oblivion. I don't know. I mean, this game is winnable for Cloud9. It was just tough in the situation they were in. And I guess the reason I'm bringing them up specifically is because I have been stalwart in my opinion that Cloud9 are going to be a Worlds qualifying team from LCS. I have said since before the split started that I believe Cloud9 cannot miss Worlds. Because even though they have a role swap support and this team has never played together before, the level is high enough and they have players with experience, like that, with a level of international experience that makes me feel like they can't miss. And Cloud9 also just don't miss often. So there's also some plot armor kind of behind it all. And I think it's fair to say, like, looking at Cloud9's games, like, sure, everyone's going to write off the Super Week because it was a different roster. That's true. Not winning a game there sucks in week one. Like, absolutely blows chunks that you couldn't pick up even one win in any of those 3 games. It just hurts your season so much because it's such a big portion of your game so early on and you just didn't have your intended roster. But can't do anything about that. And they're 4-5 after 9 games. So it's going to be a long run, given how confident I am about Cloud9's success. I think, to your point, Joe, I don't think the role swapping has been hurting C9. I just think the general lack of time with these 5 players was always going to be the thing Cloud9 were fighting against. Like, their pieces are good, but I think they're just figuring out like how to play the game together more than anything else. I think they're just trying to, they're all really good. I think they're just figuring out like what are the best looks for these 5 players look like. What's the best way for them to play together? I think there's just general growing pains of being a new roster, even though you have plenty of experience between these players. I mean, they've changed coaches at least once this year. They've changed players. Like, I don't think the role swap is affecting Sven to the point where they can't be successful. I just think in general the team is like trying to figure a lot of stuff out. But I think the individual players are good enough that I don't think it's individual skill that's going to hurt them. It's can they figure it out fast enough? Because they have been on the wrong side of time since before the split started, and that will not change. 1 week is not enough to fix that stuff. They just don't have time, and they're gonna have to like figure it out. And I think they will. Even if I knew what I know now about how they're going to start and the roster and stuff, I would still think that Cloud9 would figure it out because the split is fairly long. But it's going to be tough to live up to my prediction of them making Worlds. But man, when Cloud9 hit, they really hit. So very exciting team. Very powerful. But I feel like the LCS is starting to get a little bit spicy. It is funny that I mean, summer's always weird because 8 teams make playoffs, and obviously the first round of playoffs isn't like that long for the teams that kind of squeak in to the bottom spots. But it feels like the tiers of teams are really murky right now, especially with IMT picking up a win today. And like the assumption is that Golden Guardians and Dig, who've also had some good looks, even though they're towards the low part of the standing, will also continue to step up. And figuring out which teams are going to drop out is kind of fun. I think obviously the middle is the part of the standings that has the most room for movement. I think at this point it feels like EG are not going to be pushed out of top 2. Probably going to be a scrap for second, but it's going to be one of 100 Thieves, Cloud9, or TL. And then it feels like our top 4 teams are still our top 4 teams, but you never know. And then 5 through 8, good luck. I don't want to predict it. Not my job, thankfully. Yeah, it was a fun weekend. Long week. Really long week for me, but good to be back. Thanks for checking out the show. If you missed anything, or you just want to go listen again, you can. Wherever you got your podcasts, you can check this show out. If you want the audio-only experience. If you want the YouTube experience, you can check out the YouTube experience as well. If it's your first time here, thanks for hanging out. Click the follow button, turn noties on, etc., etc. Catch you all next week. Thanks for hanging out.